Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ener Ki Wellness Weekly. I'm super excited to have you all here today. We're going to be talking about some super cool topics. This week, we're talking about what drives you, what keeps you motivated, especially in ages of COVID. And I am super excited to have the amazing Rhodielyn joining us today. And Rhodielyn's going to be helping to talk to us about some of the things that keep her motivated and some of the things that keep her excited and some of the things that help keep her in tip-top shape going on right now. So thanks for joining us, Rhodielyn.
Hi.
Awesome. So Rhodielyn, introduce yourself a little bit to us. Tell us what you're all about, what your background is, and everything like that.
So I consider myself a freelance instructor. Oh, I'm Rhodielyn. And basically, the two industries that I freelance in is wellness and aviation. In wellness, how I met Austin is through yoga and other different modalities in fitness like bar and sculpt. And I also am certified in holistic nutrition. And for aviation, I essentially teach people to get their pilot license. So private, commercial, and working towards different other ratings as well for my personal growth. Mm-hmm.
So amazing. So for those of you that haven't met Rhodielyn yet, you have to meet her. She's amazing. Her spirit will light you up. One thing that always stands out when I talk to you, Rhodielyn, is your sense of drive. So that's why I'm super happy to have you on this week to talk about this. Something that's really important to me during this time is COVID. So COVID has basically made our world a place where every day is a guest. So my question to you is, what obstacles do you think you faced since COVID started, and kind of how have you overcome them when it comes to your drive and inspiration?
It's such a great question. It's actually kind of ironic because 2 weeks before COVID, I was going through some personal things and I needed to press the reset button for myself to figure out what was actually driving me and what was inspiring me. And then COVID hit. And for me, it was a blessing in the timing because I remember thinking I needed some time just to figure it out. And I was allowed that time when it first started. So what it generally came down to when I was doing a lot of reflection and personal healing, because I wanted to grow, was the fact that I was figuring out what was the derivative of what actually drove me. So was it an external source? Was it external validation, things like that? Or was it actually coming from within? And when I found, like, I sort of made a list, the external sources, it actually led to emptiness and this feeling of feeling empty and not what I wanted, which is when I was internally validating myself, I actually felt more fulfilled and I craved that fulfillment or that feeling of fulfillment. So that was really what kept me going, kept that drive. So that was an obstacle in itself, was figuring out what the drive really was. And then the other obstacles in my drive was myself and my fear. And I also later on had figured out, or recently more than anything, that my fear was actually just an outside source. It's not real. It's not, I was getting into my own head. So when I figured out, like, nope, that's the outside, it's not truth, it's what's in here, that's what made a huge difference.
Totally. And I think that worthy to talk about. In nursing, we talk about how our brain doesn't know the difference between real life trauma and like not trauma. So our body thinks that when we go into stress, like if we go back to primal ancestors, we could be eaten by whatever animal. So if you are stressing about COVID, your brain automatically goes into a place of, do I have food? Do I have, and so you almost have, like you said, turn off that, okay, is this real? Is this a problem? And so that's crazy. What do you think people should know about drive and inspiration, especially during right now?
So that I was reflecting on that question with the word should. I feel for myself, that word, I can't say what you should do just because
Mhm.
I'm not living your life, but things that has helped me based on my experiences is figuring out what do you actually want to feel. A big inspiration in the last year, I went to a retreat down in Canmore, and I actually got to meet Danielle Laporte. I don't know if you've met her
Yes,
before. Yeah. Wonderful. And a big thing she, what's the word, where she harnesses in people and motivates them is figuring out what your core desired feelings are, and that sitting down in the last year really making decisions based on what I actually want to feel has is what I would encourage, and hopefully this resonates with people, is that encourage on what actually makes you feel, say, fulfillment or whatever your desired feelings that you want, and and harness that. That makes sense.
totally. It's the same with fitness, and I think you'll agree when we're teaching yoga, bar, and things like that. There's a lot of people that come for, I want bigger legs, or I want a bigger butt, and I think the switch that happens when you become a teacher is you start doing it for function. Like, I want to be able to sustain this movement for 20 minutes. I want to be able to continue to have strength in my legs. Like, it's more of a functional fitness rather than static fitness. And I think it's the same kind of thing is you start resonating with what that feels like. Like, does that feel like soreness? Does that feel like a little bit of weakness the next day? Does that feel like something different for everyone? And so I kind of resonate with that when it comes to what am I feeling, not what is the result.
Yes, exactly. And then naturally, whatever the results end up being, it doesn't matter too much because you felt that
Yeah.
fulfillment, that the exercise, the soreness, or you felt the accomplishment of whatever your goals are, right? So if it's flying, for example, as a student, like, oh, I got my first solo because I felt the hard work that I put in, or things like that, right?
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. So right now in this day and age, I'm so curious to know with everything you have going on, what inspires you? What keeps you inspired?
I have three things that inspire me. A is that the feeling, what like am I feeling um, happiness, joy, love, all these things, and especially right now with everything going on, adversity and how people have been overcoming adversity is a big thing right now. That I'm very attracted to. So listening to people's stories, during COVID, I actually just got to meet a bunch of people around the area, more than I was expecting, and then reconnecting with my other circles and things like that. So understanding how people are overcoming like their own fears, their own maybe insecurities, and the things that are not really true, whatever's happening in their head. And then what inspires me is love, and what people do either from or for love. It's kind of cool to watch that. So those are my
Yeah.
three things that inspire me.
I love that you mentioned love, because right now we're kind of in that space where I'm not sure if anyone else has noticed it, but I for sure have noticed that um, it's easy for love to take a back burner because we're so stressed, and the words that we say may not be the words that we say, and things like that. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm gonna put slippers on because I'm cold. Hold on.
No way.
So the cool thing about Rhodielyn, everyone, is as she said, she teaches people to fly. So I wanted to talk about this because this is something that I am hugely passionate about. Being a woman in this industry, I'd love to hear about the adversity that you've had to face with that. I'd love to hear kind of some words of wisdom that you have for women that want to get into that field, because that can't be like easy.
Yeah, it's changed a lot since I've started. So with the cadet program, I got my glider pilot scholarship through the program. And even in the cadet world, there's a lot more guys than girls in military. And so I've kind of grown up in this male dominant industry in every facet of my life that I've actually been very passionate about. I've also, when I was really young, was a tomboy. So I kind of was very like, if a guy can do it or a boy can do it, I can do it better. But it wasn't like I could do it better because I'm a girl. It's I can do it better because I'm Rhodielyn. Because I want to be better and not just compare myself to, doesn't matter gender, any gender. It was just like a thing that I wanted to pursue. And so when I first started, there wasn't very many girls. I think if I had to really like sit with numbers, for example, I think if there was 20 spots for the scholarship, it was probably more than that. It was probably like 60, for example, 30 in each group. 8 of them were girls. So you can do the math in that. Yeah. And so it's not a lot of girls in that, or maybe, maybe maximum 10. And so with that ratio, you get along with the guys, and then you as the girls, it was either one of two things. It was either a little bit of a competitiveness, or the girls kind of worked together, and it formed a little bit of a bond. So that was really cool. And then when I actually got into aviation a little bit further outside of the cadet program, I was really lucky. I got a female instructor, one of the very few that was available at the time. And then I was one of the only girls in my classroom. So, always, I didn't have this need to compete with the guys or anything, or have to prove myself. I was just there because I was there for me. So that's the big thing. If I were to give it as a takeaway, more and more, there's a lot more female pilots out there. And for me, it's cool because there's a lot of instructors, a lot of dispatchers, more and more and more. And I'm actually affiliated with Elevate Aviation, who mentor women, because some women don't even actually know that this is available to them.
Yeah.
Jobs, AMEs. I have lots of now great girlfriends through the organization. What else did I want to say on that is that now that it's shifted, it's still like, for example, for female pilots, it's only, I think they bumped up the number. It was 6%, and now I think it's about 7 or 8% are now women in the entire world, which is insane. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
I see it as well in my industry. I mean, in nursing, of course, it's a traditionally female dominant kind of industry. And so working in that industry, I very much relate to what you're saying, where you don't even think about like, I'm a representative for my gender. You're just kind of doing the thing. And
Yeah.
but it's interesting because when you look at it from an outside like perspective, you really are like the minority. And so it's like amazing that you're there pushing. And like I really like what you said about kind of making friends with your fellow women in that group, because I think that's important. Like I know that in nursing we have a group of males that kind of focus on male-centered care, because a lot of the females might not see the difference that happens. Now that might be different when it comes to like being a pilot. Of course we all see differently and things like that, but yeah, I think that's amazing. Um, One thing that I wanted to also talk about is your holistic nutrition a little bit. So right now, I think a lot of people are turning towards things that are maybe not beneficial to them. And so if you had to sum up like 3 short tips for COVID, nutrition wise, what would you give people as a tip?
Um, One of them I've been even experimenting with myself is instant gratification.
Mhm.
So before well, my love food, first of all. So my instant gratification, I lean towards is food. So maybe it's a chocolate bar, it's a dirty chip, or a dirty something,
Mm.
right? And then again, going back to how do I feel afterwards? And it's not how do I feel the symptoms, like the grogginess, the sugar crash, things like that. It's the guilt that I can't deal with
Yeah.
afterwards. And so um, with holistic nutrition, I actually went for a personal reason, or I learned it in school, is because I would get massive rashes all over my skin. I've always been battling with my skin my whole life. And so understanding how the gut works and different nutrients is a big thing that has helped me at least be more self-aware. So that's another thing, is awareness. Again, that kind of is linked to instant gratification. And then when I don't give myself that instant gratification, I go and figure out, what am I actually craving for? So, for example, if I want to go for a chocolate bar, maybe I assess and I think, well, maybe I'm low in, say, iron or magnesium. So then I would go for foods that have higher magnesium and higher iron, things like that. And so with school, I learned it, and then I would refresh it by Googling foods that have that. So, so if I guess three, so that would be maybe the three things, is instant gratification, just having a little bit of just a little bit of awareness, and then understanding, through that awareness, understanding what could be a replacement that is healthier. And I mean, you can, it's fine if you do go for that instant gratification. It's how you deal with it afterwards. That's where it can be detrimental. Like I said, I couldn't deal with the guilt afterwards.
Yeah, I've way beyond, you're way beyond my training, but I've definitely taken some nutrition in my nursing, and I see from what I learn, I think that the most important thing is, if you're gonna do the cheat food or you're gonna eat something that's dirty, is enjoy it. Like if
Yes.
you eat it and then you guilt yourself over it, that you're living the stress twice. That's the point. So I always tell people, if you're gonna have that extra slice of cake, then you better freaking smile the entire time, because what's the point?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and something that I love that you said was awareness and instant gratification, because right now, especially in COVID, when we're busy and everything, it's so easy to reach for what's quick, what's easy, what's available. Um, and something that you also said is looking for those things that you're missing. So that's what I love about food, and something that I learned in this last year through my fitness journey and wellness journey is food truly is almost like an ingredient basket for your belly. Like whatever you need, take it. Like it's I think of food less as a party and more of sustenance now. Like
Yeah.
something to fuel me. And once I started doing that, it's just turned into like fun. Like I loved cooking. I love going to look at new vegetables and things like that. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing that you wish you knew before COVID hit?
That's a great question. It's hard to answer, because if I didn't, if we didn't all go through COVID and learned about healing and whatnot, I wouldn't know what I know now.
Yeah,
So if I had gone in knowing this for COVID, maybe it would have facilitated. But for example, if I were to tell my, March self, Rhodielyn, like, just trust the process, it'll be fine, I would be like, yeah, cool, trust the process, but I wouldn't believe it.
yeah,
So I had to experience it and, um, yeah, experience it, feel it, understand it, live it, in order to to really appreciate and be grateful for the knowledge I have now.
that's awesome. I think that I was thinking about this question the other day when I actually sent this to you. And one thing I wish I knew before COVID was um, the lack of control that we are going to have. Like I think something that I would have just wish I knew is that I'm not going to know anything.
Yeah,
So don't try. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, what do you do when you find yourself low on inspiration or drive?
Come back to myself, essentially. um, so when I'm I have to think of things that are grounding for me.
Yeah.
And I had made a list for myself, which, you know, um, write in my journal or meditate, or another one that actually was probably the most powerful was movement. And before I would think, oh, I had to work out, and it wasn't, that didn't, it was working out as an external reason. Oh,
Yeah.
because I would look good or whatever it was. But once I labeled it as movement, it was go for a walk, go dance in my living room or something, right? Throw on some movement, move my body, because that is just releasing all the trapped energy that has been inside my body. So if I feel low, or that stagnant, as soon as I started to move, it was just moving things around, energizing myself naturally. And it didn't have to be a hardcore workout like I used to or anything like that. It was just something.
I really the movement really resonates because especially in times of injury, I've
Mhm.
put myself in a place where I've wanted to move beyond what I can do, and it's really helped me to like even just like doing shoulder circles can be like something that can lubricate your joints and things like that. And through my fitness journey and my certifications, I found that like taking a walk, doing some squats with no weight, just doing some squats, lifting your knees can be so beneficial. And so that's, yeah. Um, One thing I also want to talk about. So social media is something that we all lean on during these days, I think, without even knowing it. We look to it, we post to it, this video is going on it. So, what do you there's this big debate that I've been having, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on if you think social media is a tool or a blockage in our everyday society right now. Is it holding us back and making us compare, or is it helping us to learn more and take in more?
It it is a lot of, that's the thing. I actually, it's a lot of what we've been talking about is naturally all the reflection that I've been going through. So um, for myself, I had to figure out again, what was my intention with the posts that I post? Is it, is it attention seeking essentially? Um, or is it because I want to, because it's something I want to share, it's loving, it's maybe it motivates somebody, but if my intention is I hope this motivates somebody, and then I want a reaction from it, then I figured that's attention seeking, that is something to do with my ego, and so I would battle with it. And I actually, there have been times where I can see that I am being more egoic with my posts or my whatever it is, the usage of social media, receiving a ton of information that I didn't even know how to sift through it. And so I needed to block it because I didn't know how to ground myself at that time. And then when I figured it was more just because I wanted to share, and I would even think like, oh, did I share, like yesterday I posted about flying and being so grateful to be able to go flying, because I hadn't done it in a few weeks or whatnot. Am I overly looking like I'm loving my life too much, or does that come across as fake? And I didn't care about that when I posted. I'm like, if people think that of me, then they'll think that of me.
Yeah.
And I know that I am truly grateful to be post, or to be able to post and share, and it's not to, my intention isn't to be making people jealous or think of me a certain way. It's just because I'm really grateful. So in a way, if you use social media to fuel the ego, the attention seeking, things like that, that's when it creates a block.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, that's just for myself and my experience with it. And I've blocked myself from even using it because of that. And then when I decided to give myself the attention that I actually was seeking, that love, the self-love, the root of, or the heart of the heart, or the heart of the matter, or whatever that saying goes, then it became more of a key to success and a key to connection. And yes, it would connect with other people, but it was ultimately the most important connection is yourself, right? So I hope
Yeah,
that answers your question. I'm very 50-50 on it. It's all about intention, really, and
totally.
how you use it.
And I think that that's something I've kind of worked with this last year too, is those that know me, I'm very vulnerable in my social media. I don't mince words for the sake of what people might see. And so that's gotten me in trouble. But at the same time, I think the best thing about social media for me is when I get in trouble, I'm the person I try to be, the person that takes accountability, because that's real. Like, we have to be acknowledging our biases, our inappropriate comments. And I think right now, in a time of change where we have the Black Lives Matter movement finally getting kind of some voice, we have the idea of equality being pushed more and more. I think these are important conversations to have, because we might say something that has a microaggression or has ego to it, and it's good to be called out in those instances.
100%.
Before we finish off, I actually sent out some kind of an ask us a question thing for me and you. So we
Yeah.
got questions here based off of fitness and teaching fitness, and they're for both of us. So we'll both give some answers. The first question is, how do you both feel when you have a student walk into your class for yoga and they are very, very clearly confused? Do you get angry that they are not prepared?
No, not at all.
No, I don't think I can speak for me. I'm not sure you, but I've never really noticed someone being confused. I mean, as teachers, we try to be aware of how people are, but I think if I saw someone that came off as confused, I would let them settle into their space. There's times that I show up to the studio ready to teach and I'm kind of like, uh, so yeah, what about you?
Yeah. My intention, or my, I guess, like, our job is to make sure that we hold space. Um, this might be up for debate later on or whatnot, but personally, when I took teacher training, the teacher said, like, don't teach with a mat. And there was some teachers who had already been teachers, and or trainees who've been teachers, who taught with a mat. And um, for myself, I had to question why. And the reason why I don't teach with a mat is because if I teach with a mat so that I can demonstrate or do the whole class with them, I don't feel like I'm there for them. I'm there and hold space. I'm there to show off my abilities, and that's not the point of being a yoga teacher. You're there, like you said, beautifully said, is that you're there to hold that space for them. So I'll never feel angry. If anything, I feel more extra, like I want to give extra love,
Yeah,
extra attention to those who are unfamiliar. And then you also don't want to neglect those who are very familiar. So you have, you swing between how do you cue, how do you teach to adhere to everybody. And you'll find out that there's
yeah.
challenges in that
I
too.
think I think the one thing that I've learned in my yoga teaching is you give the general and then you go through it individually with each person, because the general doesn't work for anyone.
No, no, exactly. That's with nutrition too, and nursing, right? You can't
Yeah,
just give the same medication or whatnot.
totally. There's like
Um,
a general protocol that no one actually follows because everyone's different, but here's our foundation that we'll work off of.
exactly.
The other question that I have is, Austin and Rhodielyn, is it harder to plan a bar class or a yoga class?
Ooh, great question. I think they're very different. It's a it depends on what you want to work on that
Yeah.
day, and so how you want to focus it. Yeah, the focus. I remember I took one of your classes, and you had a really good, Austin, I'm talking to you. I just wanted to clarify that. And you had such a strong theme, and in that you had built around it, and you do that very well. So with bar, I think you had a great bar class because of the theme that you built around it.
So my specialty, for people that don't know, is I was a ballet dancer. So bar comes naturally. Bar is my friend. Yoga was kind of my secondary thing. And so for a lot of yoga teachers, it's the other way around. You get your yoga, then your bar, um, which I think kind of benefited me because when it comes to bar, I see kind of how I can flip it into yoga and have those goals and that kind of fruition. For me, though, I think bar would be harder to plan, just because bar, it's not more specific, but there's more, I don't want to say risk, but there's less optimal positions. Like you could be doing a workout and not getting the best out of it because you're not pushing yourself. And so I think it's our jobs to kind of recognize like, hey, like turn your hip this way. Or whereas with yoga, it's more of a free expression. There's optimal and there's not optimal. Um, there's days where I, here's a little secret for everyone. Rhodielyn might not do this, but there's days where I teach a class and I don't correct people because sometimes I'm not in the place where I feel like I can give you the best correction. And I'm not in a place where I feel like you need that correction. Like maybe you just need to hold space and come move in your body for an hour. So if your arm isn't at a perfect 90 degrees, no, I'm not going to come up to you and tell you to get it there. I'm going to move on because that's not important.
Yeah.
Um, Something that really stuck out to me in my first yoga class is we were doing a twist on a lunge, and I had my arm on my side, and the teacher came up and made me raise my arm straight up. And I kept thinking, like, why? This is about my legs. If it's not functional, I just don't touch it.
Yeah, I agree.
The last question that I have for us is Rhodielyn and Austin, when it comes to students in your classes, whether it's nutrition, yoga, or bar, what would you say the biggest asked question or missed information is, the thing that people don't understand before getting started?
Mm. If you have an answer, I have to reflect on that a little bit. But,
I For
yeah, go ahead.
me, when it comes to yoga and bar and what my wellness services, the biggest thing that people don't understand when they get started is that there's no pressure. I think that would be the biggest thing is like, I'm not going to be the yoga teacher that tells you, hey, you're not doing that right. I'm not going to be the yoga teacher that's like, oh, the newbie doesn't have their mat. Like, that's not what we're here for. Same with wellness. I'm not going to point out the things that you don't want to be pointed out. I'm not going to, if there's a story in your past that we're working through and you don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to make you talk about it. So I think one thing that's really misconception is that yoga, fitness, nutrition, you don't have free will.
Mhm.
So I think that people should know, like, you are the client. You drive that class, you drive those sessions. We come in with an idea of what's best, but we're not always right. So feel free to talk to your teachers, talk to the people providing you services, because you are the person that they're there for.
Yeah. I would say not being afraid to ask questions is a big thing. I don't know what you're experiencing too, right? And
Mhm.
if you don't understand a cue that I said, it helps me grow as as a mentor, a facilitator, or whatnot. So the I guess coming in too. I guess another thing too is what is your real purpose of coming in, and then kind of hone in on what that is, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I always try to tell people to, when it comes to yoga, nutrition, fitness, when it comes to kind of working on your body, get rid of expectations and just have standards. It goes back to that feeling that you said. No, you didn't get 6 packs of abs today, but you also felt the burn. You got a workout. You feel good now. That's what matters. Continue that momentum, go drink some water, things like that. Like it builds on each other when it comes to wellness. And I think
Mhm.
that we've come into, could be because of social media, could be because not, but I think we've come to this idea that, oh, well, this person on Instagram went from having no abs to abs within 3 months. So I should be able to have that too. But what you don't see is what's behind the photo.
Exactly, right? Um, I was just going to touch up on that too. That's that instant gratification. What happens after the 3 months? Yeah, like how many times have people experienced, oh, I've lost all this weight, and then now that I've achieved the goal weight or look or figure, I don't need to try anymore. And
Mhm.
then you go into that pattern, that cyclical pattern. So to me, that's a version of instant gratification.
Yeah.
Whereas what I don't know if I can attest to how Austin operates, but I feel we are very similar in how we teach is we're trying to teach new and healthy habits and teach to that. And
Yes.
so, and that's something I've been learning with myself is what is a habit? Well, it's doing something every single day, and it doesn't matter how long you do it for, or like for example meditating, that might seem so foreign and so hard for more and more people, and it used to be for me as well, but now I can just meditate for 5 minutes and still feel good about it. I don't have to do the hour-long meditations that I thought I had to do. And if you incorporate those little new habits every single time, like studying used to be so daunting to me, and it was like, you know what, I'm just going to study for an hour and make that a little habit. And instead of making it as studying, it's reframing the thought of I'm adding more knowledge. Nobody can take away the knowledge I've learned or the education I've done. Nobody can take that away from me. So I'm adding. And so that's what good habits is just adding.
And to speak on that before we end off, a book that I read recently that's called The Art of Mindfulness. I'll post it in the description below. But this book is amazing, and it's by a monk that talks about how we have all this time and we decide, like, if we go to work, this is work's time, this is this time. No, it's all your time. It's all your time. When you're at work, that's your time. And so it talks about, like, even moments where you're like sitting there eating like a bag of chips. How many times have you found yourself like just mindlessly eating, and then you catch yourself being like, how many did I eat? The more you are mindful, the more your time is yours. The more you are focusing on, I'm in yoga right now, or I am in a video call with Rhodielyn right now, or I am going to work right now, the more your time becomes yours. And the more, like you said, you're adding on, you're not taking away or dividing your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all becomes just very seamless, and you don't even realize that um, it's like you said, divided. It just becomes one whole big thing, and
You
I
get
don't
more
know.
excited to do things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Awesome.
love it. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Now I'm
Thank
like, whoa, I have
you so
something else
much,
that I can kind of work
Rhodielyn.
on.
Um, I can't thank you enough for being on Ener Ki Wellness Weekly. We loved having you. For any of you that are interested in Rhodielyn and her instruction services or messaging her, I'll post her social media below. You can get in touch with her. She loves talking to people, as you can see. And thank you so much for being on the show today, Rhodielyn. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Austin, for having me. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you soon again. This is amazing. And yeah, feel free to contact me. And you're amazing,
Oh,
Austin, for hosting this. You are so inspirational. I just love you. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining Ener Ki Wellness Weekly. I hope we'll see you next week, and enjoy your week. Live in your body, love in your heart.